Hey YouTube, it's me again. So, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I have managed to survive arthritis without getting any kind of opiate medication or joint replacement or anything like that. What supplements I use and why I use them. So, just a little quick background on me. I have about 6 different bone deformities, and so I've always walked out of alignment. So, if you can imagine, if your car was out of alignment and you drove it for 10 years, what sort of damage would you have done to that car, right? So that's kind of what's happened to me, is that not only are my tires bald in some spots, but I also have wear on every single suspension and turning part, right? So I have damage in my hip, I have damage in my ankle, I have damage in my knees and my kneecap. I even have some weird things going on with my pelvis. So I have a little bit of arthritis all over from walking with twisted legs. And I have not been able to find a surgeon who is willing to operate on more than one of my deformities. So I am left walking funny until I find somebody who can fix my hip and my feet. So I first started thinking about using supplements instead of anti-inflammatories about 7 years ago when I had my first bike crash and my arthritis started to get significantly worse than it was before. I have tried probably 200 different things that all had claimed to help with arthritis, and found out that only 4 of them actually do anything and have scientific research behind them. So I'm going to tell you about what I take and what the research tells us. So first off, this one should be pretty obvious. Glucosamine and chondroitin, if that's how you say it, chondroitin. So this stuff, there is a series of trials, I think they're called the MOVES trial, where they pitted this up against celecoxib, a really strong pharmaceutical drug that acts like ibuprofen basically and touches a lot of the same spots. There were 3 different trials, at least, done on this, where people were trying to show that this was superior to the blockbuster medication that costs quite a lot more money. And they actually had some decent proof behind the fact that glucosamine works pretty well. It came very close to efficacy as celecoxib in reducing inflammation, which was the primary endpoint. Now, another interesting thing about anti-inflammatories is a lot of them touch the COX-2 receptor, which will inhibit prostaglandin synthesis, and prostaglandin both creates inflammation but also creates healing. So if you're like me and you're walking funny and you're grinding at your joints and funny angles and you're creating accelerated wear on certain parts of your joints, the last thing you want is a drug that prevents your body from doing the small amount of regeneration of cartilage that it's capable of doing. So what will happen over a long run of using NSAIDs is your body will actually lose cartilage faster than if you don't take them. And that's not just because you end up moving more because you're in less pain, it's because your regenerative functions of your body are nullified. So glucosamine, what it actually is a building block for your cartilage. So it works to reduce inflammation by helping your body regenerate. And so when we have lots of inflammation, it's because degeneration is happening quicker than regeneration is happening. So glucosamine actually ends up getting you closer to regeneration and will slow, this hasn't been scientifically proven, but I believe, based on how it works, that it will slow the loss of cartilage. So I've been taking this for 8 years, and this has been my go-to every day. And when I don't take this, I notice it after a number of days. And then it takes a little bit longer when I start taking it again to start taking effect. And that's also what they found in the trials. They noticed that the effect of taking an NSAID, celecoxib, was nearly instant in reducing the pain, but glucosamine took something like a week or 2 weeks to have within 10% of the same pain relief as a drug that can kill you. And yes, NSAIDs do kill people. One of the big problems with celecoxib, and especially with Vioxx, was that it increased the rate of incidence of heart attacks. Now, this is something that helps your body build cartilage, so it has no real ability to have any side effects. Your body just takes it up and uses it when it can. So it's really good and safe to take over the long run, as far as I know. Now, fish oil, this was one of the first things I took for my arthritis pain, and I noticed this made a big difference in my knees. And there's a gazillion research articles saying that this is good for everything, and I believe a lot of it is true. Now, the reason I believe that fish oil is like the most amazing fat you can put in your body is because it displaces all the omega-6 type of oils that we consume in our daily diet. So really, fish oil is not magic. It's a fat that we should be eating more of. And taking a pill actually helps disbalance the omega-6 and omega-3 ratio in your diet, which leads to reduced inflammation. And again, it has no side effects that we know of. In fact, a very high power metabolite of fish oil is actually being studied as a heart medication as we speak. And it's in early clinical trials. So I think that tells you that this is some good shit. So these two, this should be a minimum of what you take. And I have an oddball one here, Boron. You would not think that this has to do anything with arthritis. However, there is a researcher in Australia a long time ago who noticed that the soils were depleted of boron, and a lot of animals that were grazing on that land ended up with arthritis, also known as lameness. I don't know why they call it two different things. But when they would start adding this to their diet, they would see a big difference in these sheep and whatnot just grazing around. Instead of sort of limping along, they were frolicking and playing, and they're normal, and they're like, oh, well, that's interesting. So there isn't a ton of research saying that boron is good for your joints. However, I started taking it just on a bet because it was cheap, and I have noticed that it almost makes as much of a positive effect on my joints as maybe fish oil. So that's another one of those things where if I don't take it, I notice it. I'm going to tell you about the big gun, and that is collagen. So collagen has a lot of research on it, pointing to the fact that it can help regeneration. Nobody successfully regenerated a complete knee. The results have not been drastic. However, collagen contains the very similar amino acid profile that is used to basically make up your bones, your tendons, etc., ligaments. So this is essentially the building block in the same way that glucosamine is kind of a building block of cartilage, bone, etc. So taking this is a really good idea. And I call this the big gun because it actually has a pretty fast effect and a pretty strong effect, probably stronger than any of these combined. I do not have to take collagen every day anymore, thankfully. Now that I have had my tibia realigned to the correct anatomical position, I have a lot less friction, extra friction going on my joints, so I have less inflammation from walking and moving. But when I had more inflammation, I was taking this every day, and that was holding me together. And very rarely would I have to take an NSAID, even at the peak of my pain, when taking all of these combined. So I am sort of religiously devoted to taking at least these three for the rest of my life, or at least as long as I have visible damage in my cartilage. Even whether I'm aligned correctly or not. And I am hoping that when I am aligned correctly and I have all my other deformities corrected, that this will help me regenerate, because I am way into the less friction zone and more into the regenerative zone of how my joint environment is working. I have not discovered so far something that is as powerful as these, that is not basically just a painkiller. Now, if you can find something else that helps you regenerate and lowers inflammation without a negative side effect, then I would absolutely like to hear about it and experiment it with it, and maybe add it onto my regeneration stack. But so far, I have not really found anything that works that way. And when I have found hints of it, I just didn't find any scientific research backing it. There is research backing all of these to varying degrees. Boron probably has the least. Collagen has some trials that show that it can help with regeneration. So who knows? And a lot of medical sources will tell you that you cannot regenerate cartilage, but that's pretty much a lie. You can regenerate almost every tissue in your body. It's just that that cartilage regenerates at an extremely low rate. Like, you probably get a complete turnover of all your cells from being recycled to being rebuilt over the course of like 2 to 5 years. The lowest time I've heard is about 2 years. So if you are looking for a long-term improvement, you're going to be taking this stuff for a long time. And that's why I buy Costco brand because this is a daily thing for me. This is probably the rest of my life I'm going to be taking this stuff. As far as natural painkillers go, the unfortunate thing about turmeric and I think also boswellia is that they touch the COX-2 system. So while they may be natural and they may be not having so many side effects, they're very safe. They're going to cut down on your regeneration, and you don't want that. You want to only take things like that when you absolutely have to. And if you're like me and you have deformities, you really need to get those checked out and find a specialist that is able to operate on those, because that will dramatically change the way that your joints are as you age. I think that a lot of people actually have arthritis due to misaligned bones and not really exactly due to injury. One interesting case of this is that people that have genu varum or varus or valgus, where their knee bone, their tibia is like has a bend in it one way or another. A very common operation they will do before doing a total knee replacement is called the HTO, high tibial osteotomy, where they will align the bone the way that it was meant to be so that it sits at the right angle. And what can happen with that is that the patient has another 10 or 15 years before they need a knee replacement, because now they're wearing on the other side of their knee. So they're oftentimes when they do this correction with this bone cut and build, they overcorrect so that it's using the other surface of the knee more, and then there's no pain on the other side of the knee. Well, it might be more advisable. I'm not an orthopedic surgeon. I have no training to do a more even cut, but this is one example of where the medical industry acknowledges that correcting alignment is a very good thing, and you should probably have it done at a much younger age so that half of your meniscus isn't missing. But again, we don't, here in the United States, we do not have a preventative healthcare system. We have a disease and symptom control system. So we don't think about people in terms of like their long-term health. It's unfortunately up to you to figure this stuff out as to why you're getting this pain. And a lot of people have pain because of alignment issues, just like a car. Just like you'll see all sorts of weird alignment things going on with cars show in the wear of the tires. Same thing with your cartilage. So see if you can do that. Now, if you have a thing like a foot deformity or a leg length discrepancy, that's actually fairly easy to correct using custom orthotics. I have one of my hips is 1/3 of an inch longer than the other one, which makes that leg shorter. So what I did was on that, on the shorter leg, I actually have a, wait, hold on. I got it the other way around. Yeah, the hip is longer. So on the shorter leg, I have 3 different insoles on that shoe. And I noticed that my walking is more confident, and I have a lot less pain in my hip as I'm doing a lot of walking. So I've essentially kind of corrected for that. I also have an issue where my feet, instead of being flat, they're tilted. So I've built an orthotic where it has a tilt in it to the same degree as the angle of my foot's tilt, and I've actually noticed that leg is progressively getting stronger on its own just from walking, not from doing any kind of exercise or anything, because I'm able to, because of gravity, I'm able to use different muscles now to walk using that. So a foot deformity is not necessarily a death sentence. It really depends on what kind of foot deformity it is, but what happens at the foot translates all the way up to the neck. Because if you're sitting crooked, then everything's getting worn funny. So really, you just need a couple more insoles in one of your shoes. But you're gonna have to find out exactly how different your legs are before you go try to do that. Because if you go too far or too little, you could end up hurting yourself. And there's also an adjustment period. But nonetheless, before you try any of these, you should try fixing your joint alignment if that is your issue. Now, if you have an autoimmune disease, then that's a whole nother ball game, and I'm not super familiar with that. People that have autoimmune diseases seem to respond really well to a full-on carnivore diet. There's tons of testimonials of people with rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and a variety of others where they go on an extreme elimination diet and then they stop having the inflammation. So that's worthwhile too. Maybe you might want to take some of these supplements after you recover from that if you've done damage to your body. So hopefully this has been helpful. I will let you know how my leg's doing in maybe a year from now. It's doing really well after getting fixed. But for now, this is doing a lot of the work on helping me recover from that. So anyway, I'll chat with you later. Bye.